Hey everybody, welcome back to Only Stupid Answers. My name is DJ Wooldridge, and today, to talk about the boys, I have a very special guest with me. Matt, say hi to the boys and girls.
Hi, am I the special guest?
You're the special guest.
Oh,
you didn't
my
know.
goodness.
Well, people don't know.
It was a surprise to me too.
I have so many people, and they're just sitting there waiting, and they don't know if they're going to be the guest or not. It's your turn.
I was going to say, your green room is packed.
It's
dude.
crazy.
You got to work on that. Yeah, it's a lot.
So for the kids at home that may not be familiar with you, what are you working on? Who are you? Where can they find you? All that.
What am I working on? Who am I? My name is Matt Raub. I am the VP of Unscripted Content over at Smosh. Smosh is one of the oldest comedy brands on the internet. Mm-hmm. We have a ton of things like Smosh Games and Smosh Pit, our unscripted side, and we do sketches, and we just launched a Twitch channel. So some folks might know me from there. They've seen me on camera. I do a lot of stuff behind the camera as well, but yeah, that's where I've been, and that's where, other than my apartment, that's where I've been in the last 7 months. So yeah,
we're going to be talking about The Boys, season 2, episode 7, Butcher, Baker, and Candlestick Maker. Congresswoman Victoria Neuman's sham congressional hearing against Vought takes place in 3 days. Are we going to let her criminalize superheroes when we need them most? We have to stand up against such blatant partisan politics. Please join fellow Patriotic Americans and send $20 to VoughtPromise.com to tell Neuman and her Kangaroo Court Cronies that they won't win. Quote, not on our watch, trademark. I gotta say, these synopsises hit a little too close to home sometimes.
But I will say, honestly, the whoever's writing the prime synopses are amazing. They clearly learned a lesson or two from Netflix being kind of cheeky and just went way in that direction. But I love it. It's great.
You can tell. I love it when you can tell the synopsis person that's their one thing. This is my time to shine.
Yep. This is them doing their tight five. It's great.
This episode was directed by Stefan Schwartz and written by Craig Rosenberg, and of course, it's based on the comic by Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson. Now, Matt, before we get into the episode, you were talking about that you were a fan of the comic.
Yeah, so I've always been a fan of The Boys. The Boys, the first trade has always been it's in my top 5. It's up there with a bunch of Millar books. It's up there with, Old Man Logan and things like that. And I watched season 1 right out of the gate, and I was not a fan. And I was like, wow, it's such a bummer because I love the book so much. And all I was doing was comparing frame by frame the book with the movie and you or the show. You really shouldn't do that because it's a different beast and you should appreciate it for what it is. So I was just kind of it was fine. And then the world shut down. And then I was like, well, I've got a lot of time on my hands and The Boys is coming back. I'm going to give it a second shot. Rewatched season 1 and loved it. Loved way more. I was like, what was I like? Was I hallucinating? Was I on my phone? What was my deal the first time I watched it? But watching it the second time, I was like, just all the stuff with the deep, all the stuff that they did, the Starlight stuff, the plane stuff. It was just so good and just visceral in a different kind of way. And it just really, it kind of solidified itself as being what the television superhero universe needs as a comparison to The Boys. And I loved it. I thought it was great. So season 2, love. It's great.
Let's start off with talking about the 7, or the boys and girls over the 7, starting with the Deep and A-Train, who are well ingrained in the Church of the Collective. They are at a party in this episode where Alistair, the leader of the Collective, comes over and asks them about Eagle the Archer, who was apparently on the outs because he didn't want to. It's Scientology. He didn't want to cut his mom out of his life, and so they release a bunch of inappropriate videos and information about him. And the Deep is at first Eagle Archer, my best friend, whatever.
He's a great guy. He was there for me. Yep.
And then Alistair tells him, he's like, oh, never mind. I don't care about it. What do you think about the Church of the Collective and the Deep and A-Train's different relationships with it?
So I'm a big fan of big bads, right? Going as far back as the Joss Buffy days. I'm a big fan of setting up big bads. And the cool thing about a first season is you need to create a big bad and either kill it or establish that it's actually going to evolve and become worse. So now that we're in season 2 and they've obviously got a season 3 on the way, I think they're starting to think a little more ahead, and they're like, okay, well, we're going to wrap the Vought stuff up pretty quickly. And I have a feeling Church of the Collective, they're setting it up to be the next big bad, the next big thing that they kind of go up against. Because look, if Vought and Stormfront and everything, this is kind of this Trumpish kind of weird, very, very nasty, very awful, borderline white supremacy type of stuff. If that's the current evil, why not dig deep into kind of religious fanaticism? And that's a whole other aspect that we can, to a degree, parody. And that was a huge part of Preacher, which was not only a Garth Ennis book, but also something that Seth Rogen took to screen. So I think that that's a great, and Seth Rogen loves religion. He loves, kind of spoofing religion where he can and kind of like pointing out flaws in it. So I do think that that's going to be the next big bad. It was interesting because it felt like, I was like, where are we going to go with the deep this season? Like, how do he was having a redemption story last year. Are we really going to keep diving down? And now he's kind of attached himself to this next new thing. I don't know. I think they're obviously, the Deep and A-Train, they're definitely going to continue as far down this path as they can get because they've got the dangled carrot of rejoining the Seven, which why would you want to? If the Deep was okay with shutting down Homelander and A-Train also hates Homelander, like, it doesn't feel like the Church of the Collective is a necessary villain to the Seven or Vought, but it just feels like it's another entity. So I'm really curious where they end up going with it. And I'm curious how they tie everything together. Like, is there some kind of tie between the Church of the Collective and this head exploder character, maybe, or plot device, or whatever the case may be? I don't know.
I'm glad we're both on the same page that we think the there is a head exploder character, that it is a individual that is blowing up heads. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. I also pun not intended. And I like the idea that Alistair's being set up, or the Church of the Collective is being set up for future seasons, because we only have one more episode after this. So if there was anything else going on there, we don't have time for it.
We don't have time for it.
Meanwhile, Elena is deciding to leave Maeve because she saw the airplane video, and I think that's a smart decision. And of course, Maeve is not handling it well. She flips the table, and I like this because all throughout the season, even though Maeve is not as outwardly controlling as Homelander, there's still, any scene she has with Elena, there's still a clear power imbalance. Yes. And so I'm glad that they finally kind of addressed that a little bit. And of course, we're going to make some decisions later on in the episode we're going to get into. But what do you think about Elena and Maeve?
I mean, I think it's a lot like the Doctor Who companion dynamic, right? You've got your ultimate hero and you've got your human companion. And I think that the human companion's sole responsibility is to humanize the hero. Yeah. And if the hero's like, I had to do what I had to do, and the human aspect is like, no, you willingly killed all those people as a reminder of the humanity that Maeve has essentially kind of like turned a blind eye on by being under Homelander's wing. So I think it's fascinating. I think it's really interesting that she's kind of like broken. And I think that her being broken up with is definitely like sent her down that path, and smoking and having a threesome and doing the thing that she's doing and kind of just being. I do like that. I love the concept of kind of a devil may care hero who's just kind of like, yeah, I showed up and I killed Black Noir and now I'm gonna go back and do my thing. Like, I love that aspect as a character. Like, it's very One Punch Man to me.
Yeah.
But I think it's really interesting, and I'm very curious where that goes, because does Maeve even still want to take out Homelander, or is she just kind of on this mission of self-destruction now? She
still hasn't pulled out the Homelander video from the plane yet. I do think about the way that's been set up, and earlier in the season, it doesn't feel like the most thought out plan in the world, but you know what, maybe it'll work out because of everything else going on with the Senate, but we'll get there in a minute. Finally, yes. Homelander and Stormfront are getting even closer together, and they have a rally, which again hits a little too close to home for me. And they decide to go visit. Homelander decides to introduce Stormfront to Ryan, and like anything seen with Homelander, really, but especially with Homelander and Becca, it's very tense for me as an audience member and for Becca. And they kind of turn Ryan against Becca by revealing the truth about the world he's grown up in. And what interested me about this is there's a confrontation between Homelander and Becca. And Becca's, of course, making her argument that he needs a mother, else he's going to end up like Homelander. And this is probably the first time ever I've heard Homelander make an argument that actually kind of made sense, in that he's like, listen, I wasn't taught about the real world, and then I got shown the real world, and it really messed me up, and we don't want that for Ryan. And it was the one time I was like, oh, does Homelander have a point?
It's a bad sign when you're starting to go like, he's making sense, but also he's making sense because he's got someone in his ear. He's got Stormfront kind of like nudging him in the right direction. It's a really interesting. Homelander is such a fascinating character to me, because he so seamlessly is able to flip between this kind of like alpha white supremacist, like just psychopath, to kind of this like beta male, like, yes, ma'am, whenever you say, in such a seamless manner. It's so fun for me to watch that. And Anthony does such a good job with just flipping it, because it's just really enjoyable to watch him do that and watch him kind of play with that and just really just despise him from credits to credits every episode.
Yes.
There's just not a period of time where I'm like, yeah, Homelander had a redeeming moment. Like even when he has a good idea, he's like, no, it's true. He understands that he was raised the wrong way.
Yeah.
Still despicable. And it's still very enjoyable because of how despicable he is.
Yeah, he's a truly irredeemable and unlikable character, but still really interesting. I think of this show, Homelander is the standout because he's just one of those, he's such a great villain. Because like you said, even though he might understand stuff and you might understand him, there's no redeeming quality and there's literally nothing to humble him yet. I will say I was kind of holding out that, like, you know what, maybe Ryan's a wild card. Ryan has the same powers. Maybe Ryan, and now Ryan's in his camp. It's like, I still to this day do not know how you stop Homelander.
Well, the only way to stop him is with a Ryan. But my theory is, because you've got to bring the Butcher aspect, the Butcher-Becca relationship aspect back into play. Yeah. My theory is that Ryan is going to go, and we only have one episode to do this, but I think that Ryan is going to go full Brightburn and kill Becca, even if it's by accident. Yeah. I think that he's a child. He doesn't know the strength of his own abilities, and he doesn't know what he can do. And he his eyes, glue, and it was a whole thing. But I think that is my theory and what is going to go there. And I think we may get to a place where we build Ryan eventually taking down Homelander, because theoretically, Ryan was born with powers as opposed to being injected with powers. So maybe that makes him stronger by nature, but also his mom was human. I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out, especially in this episode, whether Ryan will end the season with Homelander or maybe going back to Becca, or if he ends up killing Becca. We also, Huey gets stuck with Lamplighter. Lamplighter is now not firmly. He's kind of on team The Boys. He's going to flip on Vought, which has worked out great for every character that's decided to flip on Vought. And he spends a majority of the episode spiraling. Not the majority of the episode. He wants to spend his time spiraling and watching porn, and Huey gets tired of it. And
superhero parody porn.
Yes,
superhero parody porn.
Very specific type of porn. Which I don't know, if I had porn parodying people I knew, I think I'd feel weird about watching it. But hey, we've established that the soups are weird.
But it also, I think it shows, it's not that he's just watching porn, he's being self-destructive. He's watching this because of how much he hates those people. Yeah. Like, he despises those people, and I think that was fascinating. I gotta say, so last week it was a surprise cameo. Shawn Ashmore was a total surprise cameo for me. Initially, I was like, that's hilarious. That Iceman is now Lamplighter, and like a total parallel Pyro to Iceman type of thing. But in this episode, I was more blown away by his acting chops, because I don't know about you, I don't think I've seen much from Shawn since X-Men, really?
Yeah. He was on that following show with Kevin Bacon, but yeah, definitely.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's done a bunch of stuff, but I definitely haven't seen. So I just, honestly, my only experience with him is the X-Men movies, where he was a child. Yes. Really. I mean, it was 25 years ago or whatever, 20 years ago. So, like, the fact that I just think his acting chops have gotten so much better. Yeah. Like, he genuinely, like, I was like, actually really of an enjoyable character in this. And I thought he was like, and the way that his character kind of comes full circle towards the end, I thought was like really cool. And that whole thing about his father. And like, I was like, damn, he actually like really kind of blew me away as like an actor and a performer. I was really into it.
What kind of shakes him out of his ennui to the degree that it is Starlight is kidnapped because her mom sucks at clandestine stuff. It's like, oh, my daughter's on the run. I'm going to just check with Vought real quick before I go say hi to her. So Starlight gets captured. Huey gets Lamplighter to help break him in. He thinks Lamplighter's helping him. We find out that Lamplighter is really just kind of done. He's ready to tap out, and he wanted to kill himself in front of his statue. And I like the slow reveal of what's happening once he realizes his statue isn't there, which, like, why would it be there? What did you think about?
Why would it? They've literally evolved the team so many times. We saw them take I think we saw them take A-Train's statue down. Like, that was fast. Like, if they're that fast, why would Lamplighter's statue still be up in the meeting room? That doesn't track. But it also makes sense if he's so caught up in his own bullshit in his own world, then it makes a lot of sense that he would be like, no, of course my statue's still up. They look at it every day. I'm going to go burn myself in front of my own statue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and they were very good about getting the statues out. I will say the security in the building, not the best, because not only does the fire alarm create a light in Starlight's cell, which she's able to pull power from to escape, but also Huey has like a full 15 minutes to cut an arm off before he cuts an arm off, leaves. Starlight shows up, fights Black Noir, leaves. No security guards.
None, not one. I guess they're all at the rally. Everyone's at the rally just chilling outside.
They're all at the rally, or maybe the thought process is well, these are superpowered. Do we even need to be around for superpowered individuals? They'll figure it out.
Yeah, maybe that's the case. That would be interesting. I will say I was really impressed. I mean, looking at the character arc of Huey, the fact that he went from kind of being horrified at his girlfriend's Robin's death in the pilot to then him willingly and just brutally severing an arm with a broken bottle. I was like, man, what a character journey. What a great that was such a great little arc of that.
Who knows what violence they're going to have him commit before the end.
Can't wait.
Yeah, we just have to wait and see. I'm really excited to talk to you about the Starlight Black Noir fight, because I think I've said every review this season, Black Noir is my favorite of the 7. He interests me the most, just because he's such a big mystery. Anytime he gets to fight anybody, great. Great moment for Starlight to show her chops, not as strong as Noir. And then Maeve shows up to save the day, which kind of leaves her in limbo. What did you think about this confrontation?
I loved the fight. I thought that was great. I was I feel like this episode just felt like it had everything, right? You had the comment. We had a Lego recreation of The Blind Side. You had everything. You had
hilarious.
Everything. It was fantastic. You had the mature rated comedy. You had the kid stuff. You had all these weird subversive things, and then to have the superhero fight, I thought it was really well done. Yes. I thought it was great. I still don't really have a grasp of Starlight's powers.
Yeah. I talked a little bit last week of I am confused with what soups are bulletproof and which aren't, and why.
Yes.
But
also, does she have? Can she shoot? Can she project light, or she shoots energy? I mean, look, in the comics, I'm just yeah, she shoots beams. It makes sense. But when we're grounding it in reality, I'm I'm not entirely sure. So she has super strength. Can she fly? I don't think we've ever established that she can or not. It's just very strange. It's just kind of a little nebulous, which I wish they established a bit more. However, going back to the juxtaposition of cool, heroic moments and Seth Rogen-esque bullshit comedy, the fact that Black Noir was taken out by an almond joy, chef kiss.
Great.
So
great.
good.
Because he's allergic.
So good.
He's allergic to nuts. And Maeve leaves the little syringe to save his life, and we'll see if he gets it or not. Something that interested me is in the comics, Black Noir, spoilers for people that haven't read the comics. In the comics, Black Noir is a clone of Homelander, specifically around to kill Homelander should he ever go off the rails, which it really feels like the Vought in the show needs that, because he's always 10 seconds away from really going off the deep end. And in this scene, Black Noir's mask gets lifted up a little bit, and we see that he's a scarred black man. So he's not a Homelander clone, unless they did, racist Vought did some really sketchy stuff with him.
Potentially.
What do you think this is this just acknowledgement that this Black Noir is not a Homelander clone, or maybe there's more to it? Especially, I was wondering if maybe the scars are something that he's had for a while, or if they're from, because in the first episode this season, he gets burned up by the terrorist soup. So maybe that's remnants from that.
But it looks like I think he regenerates. I think they show him regenerate in that pilot. So in the first episode, I don't know. I'm really curious. I do think it's interesting that they revealed that he's black, but also when Homelander's kind of trying to defend the 7 and be Black Noir's something, no one knows. It would seem really easy to pull his mask up for someone that's never known his race or identity or anything. So I thought that was a little strange. I don't know. I'd be really curious to see where they go with that character, or they might just kill him off, which also kind of feels like something that they would do on the show, and just kind of kill him off and just make it happen. Because a character like that, who's able to take down this evil looming threat from the first season and the first episode of the first scene, all these different things, and then for him to get taken down by a candy bar, I think is pretty damn funny.
It would be great. I have some theories about Black Noir, but we'll get into those because they tie into other theories I have about the future of the show. So we'll get into them in a minute. Let's dive into the meat and potatoes of the episode. The boys plan to take down Vought. Frenchie and Kimiko are tasked with watching Senator Victoria Neuman. They bond. It's cute, but it's also kind of boring. But every time I see those scenes, it's like, well, yeah, of course, Frenchie has a crush on her.
Yeah.
She's beautiful. I get it.
And I get the fish out of water. They can't really communicate with one another thing, but I also don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I love her growth. I think Kimiko's growth is awesome, and I love what they're doing with her. I really appreciated the stuff, the background that we got on Frenchie, and the cool stuff that we saw about him losing his best friend and like abandoning the team and all that stuff. I thought that was really cool. But their dynamic, I just don't care. Like, I just don't. I'm not caught in, like I'm not really into it. I don't really, it's definitely not. I care more about MM than I care really about like that, any of the stuff that's happening there.
Speaking of MM, him and Mallory go to visit Jonah Vogelbaum, who I could have sworn to you died last season, but I guess not. But
I do think he was walking then. So maybe Homelander just paralyzed him?
Maybe. It sounds like something Homelander would do. So they go to visit him. He won't betray Vought because he's worried about the safety of his family, which leaves Mallory to tell MM basically like, hey, you should bail because this is never going to end.
Never going to end.
Yeah. How do you think we'll give MM a happy ending? I want him to have a happy ending.
I think if anyone's going to get it, it's going to be MM. I think he has done. He is kind of the heart of the group, really. Like Huey is definitely the canary, as they've established many times. He's definitely the innocence, the boy-like wonder who's just kind of along for the ride. He's our surrogate. Butcher is definitely kind of like the dregs. He's definitely the anti-hero of the group. And you've got the will they, won't they, Frenchie Kimiko. Yeah. I do think that MM is the heart. He's definitely the kind of like the moral compass of the whole thing. Like he definitely knows the difference between right and wrong. And he's definitely in it to avenge his family and protect his family at the same time. So I hope he does. I really do. But I also, this show, like I said, subverts expectations. So it might be dangling that in front of us and then be like, oh yeah, we killed him in the finale. Sorry.
Too bad. So sad. So meanwhile, while they're doing that, Butcher gets a call from his mom and he visits his dad, who's played by John Noble, which is fun because it's a Lord of the Rings reunion between him and Carl Urban. Although I don't think their characters ever shared any screen time in that movie.
I don't think so.
This was another scene where I was also like, I don't care about that. I don't care about Butcher's.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. We talked about it. I think the only thing that I was like, okay, well, if they're really going to try to separate themselves from the book, is this where they establish that like the reason why Butcher hates his parents so much is because he's technically a V baby and he's so self-loathing? Because it plays into the conversation that he had with Starlight, where Starlight's like, you're just a bigot. Why do you hate people like me so much? And it obviously it's past the whole Homelander raping Becca, taking Becca thing. And I feel like it's something deeper. And that's why I was like, oh, we're diving into his past. Maybe he secretly has powers and we're waiting for this dope ass moment where he like cocks his arms or whatever and does a cool thing. I think that'd be a really cool thing. But then it turned out that it's just like, oh no, he's just a really dad. I was like, oh, I don't care.
I always even think there's a moment when he gets really pissed off at him, like, is he just gonna throw him over the edge of the thing? Yeah. Like, I need a reason to like, because two of my favorite shows of all time, The Shield and Breaking Bad, both are led by anti-heroes, and we don't once go back to their families, not one time.
We don't need it.
Yeah,
we do not need it. It's not necessary.
But it was great to see John Noble, just because I love John Noble. This it goes in to inform. Butcher goes to meet Jonah, and he does what you expect Butcher to do. He threatens Jonah's family if he doesn't commit, which doesn't commit to going to the Senate hearing, which ties into his mom being like, I don't want you to end up like your dad. And it's like, yeah, we get it. You didn't want him to be bad, but he's bad. And we're just gonna, we should just go with it. So let's talk about the hearing, huh? We've been setting up this hearing. We go to the hearing, and I don't know about you. It was even in the Previously On segment at the beginning of the episode, the CIA head blowing up.
It was.
But it completely left my brain by the time we get to the Senate hearing. And so once everybody's heads started going, I was like, oh my. I mean, even, correct me if I'm wrong, even A-Train's replacement, gone.
Oh, gone.
Yeah.
Gone. Yeah. the replacement. And that was honestly, I had this, like, this was my train of thought. I was like watching, and they're all like sitting around the TV with popcorn at the boys HQ, and like Starlight there. I was like, wait, you have Starlight. She's your smoking gun. Bring her to the hearing.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And then heads started popping. I was like, oh yeah, no, don't bring her to the hearing.
Yeah, never mind. This was a bad idea. You were right the first time.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was awesome. I was definitely surprised. I was like, what? That's so cool. Like, that was so rad. And the fact that it's just like, oh, we thought we had this moment where we're going to take out Vought, and then it's just like a complete flip, and it's like, no. And then Homelander's just kind of like standing around, just kind of like basking in it. It was so good. Such a great moment.
So I guess obviously there's a big cliffhanger, so a couple questions arise out of it. But the first one I want to bring up is, you mentioned earlier that you think they're setting up the Church of the Collective as the big bads of next season. Do you think we end this season resolving the Vought issue? Have Vought had too many troubles at this point, and they're gonna be shut down by the end of the season?
I don't think we're going to shut it down. I do think we're probably going to resolve some version of the Homelander Stormfront situation. Like, it's Chekhov's Nazi. You can't establish that someone's a Nazi in episode 6 and not kill them off in episode 8.
Yeah.
But I think that it's interesting to me because I would love to think that the collective was behind the head popping. Yeah. I think that that's a really cool moment. I don't know. I think it would be really interesting. I also think it would be really interesting to it's very Karate Kid 2, right? It's like, great, now season 3 is going to be the boys and Homelander or Vought have to team up against an even worse entity in this Church of the Collective, which I think would be really, really cool.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to have, because it's always great, like when the X-Men have to team up with Magneto, although I will say Magneto's traditionally more likable than Homelander is, but having Butcher have to team up with his worst rival will be interesting. I do have a theory about who's doing the head popping.
Okay, hit me with it.
I think it's Mr. If I were betting man, I'd put money on Mr. Edgar, played by Giancarlo Esposito, just because it really struck me in the first episode when he was meeting in Homelander that he is one of the only people that can sit in a room with Homelander and not seem like he's about ready to shit his pants. Yes. And so I was like, what is he? Is it just Giancarlo Esposito is that good at projecting confidence and control? Or
number one, yes.
Yes. He can make you scared with just a word. We've established that. But does he have an ace in the hole, as it were? And it'd be interesting to me. This also ties into what I wanted to say about Black Noir. I think because knowing that in the comics Black Noir is a clone, I was like, well, could he be a clone of anybody in the show? And it's like, what if he's a Mr. Edgar clone? Those two theories don't coexist. It'd be one or the other. But I do think there's something going on with Mr. Edgar. Like, there's this whole racist corporation has a black man as its CEO. That guy's got something. You know what I mean?
I would be really. So you're thinking it's strictly telekinesis? You think it's Mr. Edgar using telekinesis to pop heads?
It's got to be something like that, right? Because when it was the CIA lady, I thought like Suicide Squad chip in the brain, but everybody in that room was going. Right. So, and this has to tie in some way to Stormfront saying that she had big plans for Starlight.
Oh, maybe potentially.
Yeah.
My theory, I don't know if it's because if you also one thing that did stand out to me was they were kind of happening sequentially. You'd think if you're going to take out an entire room of people, you'd almost do it. You do it almost like Kingsman did, where it's like pop, 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 pop. Everyone's heads popped off. My theory, we haven't seen a shrinking hero or villain in this universe, really, other than in the first season in the sex club. There was, I think, like an Ant-Man-esque character jumping into a woman's crotch.
That sounds about right.
I think if that would be really cool if it's just another operative that we don't necessarily know about, and they're just kind of like going up the nose, going bloop, and just going up the nose and bloop. I think that'd be really cool. I don't see that as being Mr. Edgar. I see that as being another operative, especially because they kind of established that they have like Wetworks teams, like Black Noir, Wetworks, like they have people to do this type of thing. And that feels like something that they would do. I don't know. I don't know if it would be, I feel like it's kind of on the nose for this show to give Mr. Edgar powers and do the thing. But I would love for them to do more with Compound V. That was the best part of the comics to me, which is a part of the reason why I was so turned away from the series, is because it's like, oh, but they're just guys. Yeah. They're just regular, other than the female or Kamiko, they're all just regular people. Yeah. one snap and like Homelander could kill any of these people. So it doesn't really even it out, which is why I was hoping this season we would start to get to this world of like Compound V becoming kind of like a black market drug, which we still haven't done. So maybe there's a world in which that still becomes a thing and there is a character. We also, I mean, we don't really talk about the fact that, I don't know if you were a Community fan or not, but Fat Neal is in the beginning of the episode.
We didn't even bring that up. He was radicalized by Stormfront. I do feel a little bit bad for that. I've gotten to the point where like anytime an actor, like, because as we're reviewing this show, I'm also reviewing Lovecraft Country, and so you've got a lot of racist cops on that show, and like somebody like, you know, your one big role is a character named Fat Neal on Community. What's your next like major role? It's like, well, you look like somebody that would be radicalized by conservative neo-Nazis. So why don't you go?
But I thought it was great. I thought it was a great little moment, and I was definitely like kind of excited. It's like, oh, they're gonna kind of like introduce him as like almost like a beard hunter type, because I thought that was kind of the direction they were headed, and they went in this like totally different direction, and it just killed an innocent person. I was like, oh my god, Fat Neal, why? But it was great. I loved it. I thought it was a great moment.
I really like the idea of a shrinking suit blowing up their heads, because then it feels like a riff on everybody's Ant-Man Thanos theory. I think that would be really funny.
Yeah, I think that'd be really, really cool. And yeah, I didn't even think about the Thanos connection, but I think that that's such a great nod to the fans online. I think that's really cool. That's my thought. I don't know who it is. I just think that is how it's happening, because I think that's really fun.
Is there because I'm not, you're a fan of the comic. I haven't read the full comic. Is there a shrinking hero in the comic?
Not to my recollection, but what was interesting, because this another friend of mine had mentioned this. There's a couple scenes early on in, I think in this season, where there's like a notable fly in like the close-up shots, and they don't like retake, and it just kind of like, they're just kind of like, nah, like they're just kind of like doing it, and they never address it. It just kind of happens. And his theory is that plays in, and there is some kind of either like tiny character thing or something along those lines. But I think that might play into it, or they were just like, they needed to rush the shot and decided not to retake when they had a fly in the shot and it was bothering the cast. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
You know what? I think you might be right with it. Like, not to get my hopes up too much, but it makes sense because like, even if it was a telekinetic character, they're not around, you know what I mean? Like, how do they know what people are saying? But if there's somebody tagging along with the boys or with characters to blow up their brains, that would make a lot of sense. All right, I think that's a great theory. So before we wrap up, remind the kids at home where they can find you and what they're up to, what they should check out.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram at Matt Raub, MATTRAUB. You can see me and the rest of the Smosh fam on Twitch, twitch.tv/Smosh Games. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we play board games, we review memes, we play a lot of Fall Guys. You can see us all the places over there, or Smosh Games on YouTube, all over the place.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on the show. It was really great talking with you. Everybody at home, you can follow me at DJ Talks Trash. You can follow this show at Only Stupid Answers, but you're going to want to yank the vowels out of stupid on Twitter. Stay tuned for more reviews for this show, for the finale next week, and for more reviews of Lovecraft Country and new podcast episodes every Monday. See y'all next time.